I have heard so many times, if I identify what is going on with me right now, if I start thinking about my feelings, then I'm afraid I'm going to end up on the floor and I'm never going to be able to get up. And so my response is, so fall on the floor, do it, cry, allow yourself to fall apart, and then you choose what you do next.
Meet Alicia Meneses Maples.
You're here. I am so happy to see you.
Her TEDx talk has set a global viral trend about glass children. She's helped millions of hurting glass children around the world feel seen. You've seen her on NBC, CNN.com, and countless online articles. Here is your host, Alicia Meneses Maples.
Welcome to the I See Glass Children podcast. This is the place where we boldly dig into all things related to the glass child experience. We own our stories without shame, we pursue our healing, and we claim our value independent of others' thoughts, feelings, or expectations. Because you are important to me, I have to give you a warning. Some of the things you hear on the I See Glass Children podcast may be triggering for you, especially if you experience childhood trauma and neglect. And while I will occasionally have mental health professionals as special guests, I am not a licensed therapist, and this podcast is never meant to be a substitute for a supportive and healing relationship with a professional counselor. I'm your host, Alicia Meneses Maples. I am a glass child, and I see you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the I See Glass Children podcast. And today I am joyfully introducing you to a phenomenal woman who is a mental health professional. I almost said in the healing arts because I see what you do as being instrumental for healing, Megan Rodriguez. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here with you.
I am so thrilled you're here. Oh my gosh, this episode I know is going to be fire for everybody to listen to. So Megan, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience? Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm licensed here in the state of Texas. I live in Corpus Christi. I am the owner of a private practice. My practice is named Path to Joy Counseling because that is my aim. My aim is to walk alongside my clients towards their path to joy and just on their path to healing and finding who they are and understanding the source of whatever it is, their emotional pain, whatever it is that brings them in.
Yeah, I love that. And so many of who I've talked to have expressed this desire. Well, sometimes it's just a question, like, is joy really even possible? Upon reflection, I don't think I've ever experienced joy. So is that something that really that I can even attain? And the fact that you have named your practice that, I think that's awesome. Megan, one of the things that you shared with me is that you work with children who have experienced all kinds of trauma and that you have worked with people who have had siblings with high needs in the past. So this is not foreign or alien territory to you.
Right, exactly. I work with children and adults, couples of all ages. And one of the things that I've noticed most in my practice is that on this path that we have to joy, part of that is understanding ourselves and understanding our experiences, understanding our history and how we've been impacted in that. And what I found is that a lot of the people that I work with in my practice have had experiences that have caused difficulties with relationships, have caused difficulties with self-worth, and particularly those who have siblings who are high needs in some way, understanding what their value is in and of themselves is something that they are constantly still seeking to come to terms with, to understand a little bit better.
we've had a couple of conversations, you and I. We've talked about childhood trauma. We've talked a little bit about complex PTSD, about attachment, and I felt like you were drawing a little bit of a roadmap for me. And I would love it if you could help draw that roadmap for the audience. So I'll start off. When a child experiences pervasive, consistent trauma,
Yeah.
what happens?
Pervasive, consistent trauma, somehow, whatever this trauma is, it's going to impact how they view relationships and how they view who they are and their own self-worth. So oftentimes, now, not all the time, I think, one thing that's important to understand, I'm going to use the term complex PTSD. And complex PTSD does not apply to everyone who has a sibling with high needs. So I'm not going to generalize in that way, and I want to make sure that I make that clear. And also, it's important to know that complex PTSD is something that is not recognized in the DSM. So it is not a diagnosis here in the United States. It is internationally recognized, which is also important to point out. It is in the International Classification of Diseases, the ICD-11, as a diagnosis in and of itself. And here in the United States, we've yet to catch up on that. Complex PTSD, really what it is, it's a separate diagnosis from PTSD, from post-traumatic stress disorder. So it includes some of the core symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, such as re-experiencing, avoidance of whatever the trauma or the trigger is, and hypervigilance. So that increased anxiety and looking out for whatever the triggers are. But it also includes some other symptoms that are not included in PTSD. So it includes emotional dysregulation, difficulty managing emotions. It includes a negative self-concept. So persistent feelings of worthlessness or failure. And it also includes interpersonal difficulties, so struggles with relationships and struggles with trust. One of the things that's important for us to know is what the role of a parent is in a child's life. And I think maybe that's the first thing to discuss is what is that role in a child's life? So a parent's role is simply to help a child understand what their own value is, what their self-worth is, to understand that relationships can be trusting, that relationships can be supportive and validating. And when a child has gone through an experience of repeated trauma, one of the things that they've learned is that maybe perhaps I can't trust that relationships are safe, that I can be secure in a relationship. I have to do something in a relationship for validation.
Can I interject for just a second?
Yeah.
Because I want to give some specific examples about what you're talking about. What's coming into my mind, Megan, is the parent-child relationship specifically. And when, as a child, because of course this podcast is for glass children. So as a child, if I see something that is happening to my brother and it's something that is scary for me or something that makes me sad and I'm a child and I go to my parents and I start to express that sadness or that fear or concern, and my parent shuts me down and says anything like, don't feel that way, or stop crying, or don't be such a baby, or suck it up, or something like that. Is that an example of the beginning of the cracking of trust in the parent-child relationship?
I would say absolutely. We all, as individuals, we all have what I like to see as like a bucket of self-worth, right? We have this bucket of self-worth, and our parents' job as they're raising us as children is to help fill that bucket of self-worth. So in this case, if a child has seen, maybe several medical emergencies, for example, with their sibling, and they're going to have some kind of emotion about that. So, it would make sense that they would feel fearful. It would make sense that they would need reassurance from their parents. The parents, ideally, would approach that child with, listen, this is a hard time for you. And I understand that. This is a hard time for our family. And it's really scary to see what your sibling is going through. And I imagine that you're really confused because you don't know what to do about it. And you're probably really scared, and you probably wonder how you can make things better. And all of that makes sense to me. And that's okay. You can be scared, and you can be concerned, and you can be confused, and all of those things. And if you're experiencing that, I want to know about it, because I'm here to listen to you, and I'm here to be here for you. And you're going to have experiences in this world that are just like that are scary. And you're going to go off into this world, and you're going to experience all of these things, and it's going to be okay, because you're going to be able to handle it. And I'm going to be here to support you. As that parent does those things, they're filling that metaphorical bucket of self-worth that says, hey, I see you. I understand what you're going through. And it's okay that you feel all of these things.
I think that adult glass children all over the world are saying yes, and they're probably going to hit rewind to hear you say all of that again, because those are things that so many of us wish that we had heard. So I want to give one more example, just again, to put things in context for the audience in terms of what you were saying about that the breaking of the trust in relationship. So this is a little bit more extreme, but I will share, Megan, this is very consistently happening in high needs families' homes.
Mm-hmm.
A break in trust when there's sibling domestic violence.
Yeah.
And the parent is failing to keep the glass child safe, failing to keep the glass child from being hit or kicked or punched or bitten or
Mm-hmm.
violated in some way or another. That would
Yeah.
fall in the lines of relationship broken trust, correct?
Absolutely. So what's important is mattering. I have to know that I matter, and that my needs are equally as important as everyone else's needs. I have to know that I am safe, and that I can trust you to protect me, to keep me safe. And when those things fail to happen, then that child begins to oftentimes internalize that and respond in some way. Perhaps I don't matter, or I need to matter somehow. So I'm going to make sure that I matter in some way, shape, or form. And so what we end up seeing is oftentimes a maladaptive response as a result of chronic trauma, as a result of chronic abuse or neglect, or just emotional invalidation in some way.
I just want to highlight the last one that you said, because I think it makes a lot of sense for everyone if they hear the words trauma, if they hear neglect, if they hear abuse. Those are things that can make people say, okay, that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
But you also added on that list emotional neglect. And I
Right.
imagine that there are some people who are listening to this podcast going, emotional neglect? I mean, my parents gave me a hard time. What's the big deal? Can you dive into that just a little bit deeper for us?
Sure. So I think that As I was saying earlier, complex PTSD isn't something that would be a diagnosis that would fit everyone. Not everyone who has gone through an experience and is now an adult glass child would qualify for a diagnosis of complex PTSD. Were they able to get that diagnosis? Oftentimes, it is a matter of emotional neglect or emotional invalidation, where my parent, for some reason, or the person who's raising me, the person who I look to as a secure base, whoever my secure base is, that person is somehow saying that my emotions aren't as important as whatever else is going on. So my emotions don't get to be taken care of. I'm going to give you an example of that. So perhaps I am in a situation where I have a sibling who has a pervasive developmental disorder. And the focus is often on the needs of my sibling. Mm-hmm. And I see that. And I see the emotional toll that that takes on my parents. And so one way that I have adapted to that could be that I put my own emotions on the back burner. Because what I have learned is that if I have something difficult happen in my life where my emotions are I don't like the term negative emotions or positive emotions, just as an FYI. I think all emotions are necessary. And there are some emotions that are easier and some that are more difficult than others. So I'm going to use the term difficult emotions. If I'm having some kind of difficult emotion, then that may place an added burden on my family. And I've been taught that I just kind of need to suck it up in some way. And so that could be an example of emotional neglect. I can't deal with your emotions right now because I've got all this other stuff. And it may not be something that was ever intentionally done. Right. And it's still something that has an impact.
Thank you for validating that. Yeah. All right. So I have experienced a variety of these things. And you said that sometimes when that happens, I can start stepping into maladaptive behavior. Yeah. What is maladaptive behavior and what are some examples of that? And what would parents start to see in children?
A maladaptive behavioral pattern is something that in the short term, it works. If I am experiencing some kind of emotional invalidation, I have to cope with that somehow. So in the moment, it may make sense, whatever the behavior is. However, it is maladaptive because in the long term, it's not going to help me adapt to life.
One of the things that helped me survive what I was experiencing in my home on a daily basis, this is probably not the clinical term, but I'm going to call it denial. Mm. I don't know if I was dissociating, but I had this almost superhero ability to stuff and to not really feel all the things that were happening in my home at the time. Mm-hmm. And as an adult, that has caused a lot of complications for me to be so detached from my emotions. Like I will know, and this was practice behavior. I got great at it. And there are times now I'm in my 50s where I'll go, I think I'm upset about something and I have no idea what it is.
Oh, yeah. That makes so much sense. And that is a very common, so that is one of the two common maladaptive behavioral patterns that are seen really often in response to some kind of emotional invalidation in childhood. So the first one I would like to talk about, because it doesn't happen, you don't see it quite as often, is more of an egocentric pattern of behavior, where the person, whoever the individual is, and it can begin in childhood, it doesn't have to begin in young adulthood or adulthood, whoever the person is, starts to forego empathy and focus on their own needs in order to attain emotional validation. So let me explain that a little bit more. This egocentric pattern of me. I need you to notice me. So look at what I'm doing. You can see it in childhood in behaviors such as scapegoating my sibling so that I can be seen. I can manipulate my parents by making myself look good and making someone else look bad, or making the situation look bad, because I need to have my needs met. I need you to see me. This is all in an attempt to get my validation. So that emotional bucket, that self-worth bucket that we were talking about earlier, when a parent does not fill that self-worth bucket, starts to get these leaks in it. Some holes starting to get formed in the bottom of that bucket. So there's always this attempt for me to fill that bucket of self-worth. So I need you to see me in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to start, maybe eventually you see some narcissistic behavioral patterns emerge. Maybe you see some manipulation, some gaslighting, those kinds of behaviors starting to emerge in this person, because I need you to fill my bucket of self-worth because it wasn't filled for me early on.
Interesting. Okay, so you said that there are two patterns, and that's one. It sounds like it's kind of a situation where the child grows into adulthood and it's all about me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay.
All about me. So I'm going to forego empathy for you because I can't afford to have empathy for you because I need to have my needs met. The other pattern that I think we see more often than the first is an ego deficient pattern, where the person takes the role of caring for others, and often at the expense of themselves or their own emotions, in order to get that validation that they need. So both individuals are looking for validation, but they go about it in completely opposite manners.
Totally different ways. I was looking around my office because somewhere I have a bell and I can't find it. And I was going to go ding, ding, ding. Yeah. That. And I understand not everything that we're talking about applies to every glass child scenario. Every glass child scenario is extremely nuanced.
Right.
That rings really true for so many of the stories that I've heard and my own personal experiences, especially when you said at the expense of our own needs.
Right.
So it's like the first pattern of behavior is it's all about me to get validation. And the second pattern of behavior is it's not at all about me.
It's all about you to get my validation. So my value, my self-worth lies in what I bring to the table for you. So as we're growing up in this, and so this kind of speaks to your story and what you were sharing just a moment ago, is my needs get put on the back burner and my emotions get put on the back burner as a result. So I may be going through a difficult time, but you don't have the time for me, mom or dad, to go through that difficult time. So instead, I'm not going to burden you. I'm going to help you. And you're going to see just how important I am, because I'm going to make sure that I'm helping you to meet your needs. I'm going to be the good kid. I'm going to be the easy kid. I'm going to be the kid that gets to be the shoulder to cry on.
I'm going to be the one that helps take care of my siblings so that she can take a break, so that she can take a rest.
Right.
I'm going to get really good grades. I'm not going to complain.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Right.
And I'm hearing this. So many things are making sense for me right now. And we haven't even gotten to attachment yet. So I'm so excited about this conversation that we're having. One of the things that occurs to me, Megan, is how dangerous this can become in young adulthood and adulthood. Because if I am following the second maladaptive pattern of behavior, which is it is all about you, it's not at all about me, then I am giving other people so much power and control over how I feel about myself.
Right. Absolutely. My emotional bucket of self-worth is continuing to get filled because I'm doing for you. So now you see me. Now you see what I have to offer you. And now I have value. Except I start to put my own needs on the back burner. So, like what you were talking about earlier, you said that you got really good at dissociating from your own emotions. And that makes complete sense because what's synonymous with the ego, with the me, is my emotions. My emotions are an important tool to help us understand the world, to help us understand our experiences in the world. So if I have an experience where my dog died and I am so sad and I'm so angry because my dog died and I feel really lonely and I see you and you're dealing with all of this other stuff. You've got all this other stuff on your plate. I don't want to add more to your plate. So I'm not going to talk to you about how it feels when my dog died because you've got enough to worry about and I don't want to be a burden to you. And that's oftentimes what you hear. I don't want to be a burden.
Right.
And so as I continue to do that behavior, I'm ignoring my emotions and it's all about your emotions and my empathy for you. And I'm not understanding what my own experiences are in the world. So I can eventually get to the point, and I hear this a lot in my practice, where I don't know what I feel. I can't identify my emotions. And because I don't know what I feel and I don't know what my experiences in this world are, then I also don't know who I am. So oftentimes you hear, I've lost myself. I don't know who I am anymore.
I have to interject because I feel like what you just said is so important. If I don't know what my own feelings and emotions are, then I don't know who I am.
It's important for us to recognize the importance of our emotions and not only accepting our emotions for whatever they are, but being able to first identify our emotions for what they are, because they are our tools to help us understand our experiences in the world, but then to learn how to cope. So then the next part is, I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know who I am. And because of those things, the emotions don't go away. They're still there. I just don't know what to do with them now. So it's like I'm putting the emotions in, I'm bottling them up and I'm bottling them up because I don't really know what they are. I'm not connected with them. And eventually they are going to come out. So they come out in some kind of emotional dysregulation, usually. So that's another reason why emotional dysregulation is one of those symptoms of complex PTSD, because I've never learned the coping skills. I've never learned to identify my emotions, but my emotions don't go away because what we resist persists.
Mm-hmm.
If I resist my emotions will always be there because I've never dealt with them.
And so if as a child, I didn't have a parent who said things like, it's okay to cry, crying is a natural response to the situation that you're in, and it's okay for you to cry, then I may grow up believing that if I uncork that bottle and I allow myself to start crying, I'm never going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
We know logically that's impossible. A person can't just live the rest of their lives crying. But in a childlike sense, that could be how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right.
we didn't learn when we were younger from our parents that crying is part of the processing of our emotions.
Exactly. I have heard so many times, if I identify what is going on with me right now, if I start thinking about my feelings, then I'm afraid I'm going to end up on the floor and I'm never going to be able to get up. And so my response is, so fall on the floor. Do it. Cry. Allow yourself to fall apart. And then you choose what you do next. It's easier said than done, obviously. But the first step is just to allow ourselves to be, because that wasn't something that we were allowed to be earlier on in life.
How are you feeling? Remember, if you're struggling, reach out to a mental health professional. You do not have to do this alone. Thank you for being with me today. And don't forget to share this episode with your bestie, your therapist, your teachers, your minister. Sharing is caring and hearing is healing. This is the I See Glass Children podcast. I'm Alicia Meneses Maples, and I see you. God sees you, and Jesus loves you.